Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a clock spring on an '04 Ram 1500. I'll show the complete disassembly and reassembly and all the tools needed. Alright, stay tuned. Alright, so these are the tools you're going to need. You're going to need a 10mm wrench or socket even for disconnecting the negative battery terminal, Phillips screwdriver, a T20 Torx head screwdriver, and you're not going to be able to get away with the bit drivers. It's going to have to be the long shank. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. We also need a 10mm socket and extension, and I have my own pre-manufactured steering wheel puller. You can buy a ready-made one, or you can make your own. It's as simple as, drilling 2 holes on opposite ends of a piece of steel plate and a threaded hole in the center. Moving on, we have a 13mm socket again with an extension. The extension's because it's the bolt is recessed in the steering wheel. It makes it a little awkward trying to get at it. So anyways, without further ado, we'll get started. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do, step over here and disconnect the negative battery terminal. That way we kill any electricity that may be going to the airbag, which is behind the middle of the steering wheel. Alright, so the next part is to take that T20 Torx screwdriver, and up underneath the column here is 3 bolts. I got 1, 2, the other one is back here. Right there's 3. So before we do that, I guess we ought to pull our steering column down, which will actually make it easier. Bear with me for a second. Yep, it's already down. It actually makes it easier to get these fascia plates off. Your adjustment knob just slips right off and it'll pop right back on. You can see there's like a key there, and the way it slides over that, get the concept, just kind of snaps on and off. So anyways, from that point, like I said, there's 3 screws here, and they are Torx screws, all 3 of them. So let me get these out. Alright, now all 3 of those are removed. Now these just clip together. You see it's already coming apart. And this is why you wanted the steering wheel down as far as possible. Give you as much room to get this out as you can. There's the top piece. Bottom piece is a little more tricky. Pull your shift column out, the little boot for it. And then the easiest way is to pull off the key side first, and then move around over here to your column adjustment, and then it should just drop right out. Alright, so at this point we need the keys, which I left in the garage. Give me a second. Alright, went and grabbed the keys. And the reason we need the keys, I'll show you in just a second, is behind the steering wheel. That's the easiest way to do this. Is 2 bolts got to be able to turn the steering wheel. As you can see, oh, mine's a mess. Back here, there's one on the top, well, technically the side, and also one on the bottom down here. I can't get the light on it. Oh, there we go. There's another one down there. So we got to turn the steering wheel basically 90 degrees in order to access those. Otherwise it hit up against the shifter and everything else. So, and those are 10 millimeter. See if I can get on it. There we go. The other one. There we go. Alright, now at this point, steering wheel cover will come off, and that's basically your airbag, as I'll show you in a second. There she is. Alright, now these two little connectors here, they have a little squeeze tab on them. Let's see if I can get this picture to go better. Yeah, that right there. And it's both on the same side. So we're going to squeeze them in, and it should come right out. There we go, there's one. There's the other. And then we just got to disconnect this other one. I might have to get a screwdriver to pop that. Pop that little tab. Alright guys, I ended up getting a little flathead screwdriver. I'm just going to pop this out. Try and bear with me with the camera while I do it. There we go, simple enough. Alright, so now at this point we can set this off to the side. And what are we left with? A bunch of wires and what I believe is a 13 millimeter bolt. That needs to come out. Oh, I was right, 13. Now you're going to have to hold the steering wheel while you do this. That wasn't too bad. Alright, now that nut, or I'm sorry, that bolt is what holds the steering wheel on the splined end. I'll show you in a second. Looks like I got a little bit of shavings in there. Anyways, that splined shaft there there's actually a little tab, a thick spline right there. And when we put the steering wheel back on, we're going to have to make sure that's aligned properly. But for now, let's get the homemade puller that I made, and we'll get it off. This one's pretty simple. Like I said, it's just I've used it on 3 different vehicles. It's just a threaded bolt through plate with 2 holes drilled at the appropriate distance. And what you do is you back this out. Yay far, and then just thread these into the 2/3 holes that are there. It doesn't have to be threaded the whole way, just long enough, just far enough that the center bolt can catch on the steering wheel. I have to back this out. Yep, there we go. Alright, now at this point you just thread that center one in. And this is what's going to pull it off. I don't know if you can see the steering wheel's actually starting to come off or not. Not quite there yet. I'm going to run out of threads. Yep. Well, in that case, I just have to back it out and thread those bolts in a little deeper. Oh, I should have known. 9/16. Right there. All right. So now, don't forget to pull all that cabling through the steering wheel. Once you get it apart, actually you can just disconnect it. Some models you can disconnect it on this end, some you can't. This one's riveted on. So what I have to do is I have to take the caps off the steering wheel. these little caps, right? And then undo these 2 bolts, and the back will come off, and all the wiring will come out of the steering wheel. I'll cover that just in case. Let me go get my Phillips head. Alright, so got the Phillips head, and we're going to start undoing these. Let me prop this up again. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Yeah, I guess so. Alright, these little caps, they'll pop right out. No big deal. But you're going to have to disconnect the wiring and all that good stuff. Not a big deal. There's the little retaining clips. You pull them out, and then it should come right out. Almost had it. Like I was saying, this little retaining clip, pull that out, and then this should come right out after you undo that retaining clip. Love this. There we go. Try not to confuse which side is which. I think the plugs are different from side to side, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue putting it back together. So get that out. Same deal. That does all the wiring. Which isn't that big of a deal. This isn't the first time I've replaced the clock spring. At this point, you're left with this is your clock spring. Nice little doohickey that allows all the electrical connections to your steering wheel to be transferred from the steering column to something that rotates. So I think it's only 2 bolts. I think that's all I'm seeing. There isn't one underneath, but there are electrical connections back here that you're gonna have to undo. There's little tabs on the top that depress. If you can get your fingers in there. There we go. And then at that point, it should only be those 2 screws. All right, there's the clock wind. Now, like I said, this isn't the first time I've had this one out. This is actually a replacement that I got out of a junkyard, and I found out that some of these, depending on the year, I think this one was from a 2003, but anyways, the airbag connector is actually riveted to the clock wind, so it can't come out unless you destroy it, of course, or drill it out and put a new rivet in. But anyways, I'm going to clean this one up a little bit since I got it out, and then I'm going to put it back in. Alright guys, got it all cleaned up, ready to put it back together. So bear with me, Reassembly is the same as disassembly, so it's just about 10-15 minute process. You guys see me there? Alright. Pretty simple. There's a little pin here that lines up with the steering column. You got your 2 screws to put back in. Don't have to be over tightened, just snug. Alright, at this point we have the electrical connections in the back. You guys remember those guys? There we go. Alright, now time to put the steering wheel back on. Remember what I was saying earlier about the splines? Right? Let me show you those right now. See, it's splined, and over here there's one spline missing, and that's what we're going to line up with the extra spline in here, the tab in here. Let's see if I can get it. There it is, the wide one right there. So we're going to line those up. Let's feed the wires through, and we'll feed the wires through and then get the steering wheel started, and then we'll worry about the wiring. It'll be easier that way. Wire goes through the top, by the way. So you're going to want the bracket on that side also, those wire connectors. And then we line up the spline. There we go. I felt it kind of kick in a little bit. It'll wiggle in for a little bit. Put that bolt back in and it'll drive it in. I don't know if you guys can see this, but underneath the steering column, well, the steering wheel, there's that little blue alignment pin. It goes right in that little slot at the back of the steering wheel. It keeps all your connections up top with the steering wheel at all times. Anyways, I'm going to put this steering wheel on, and we'll go from there. Snug enough. Alright, now we're going to worry about these connections, because if we wait any longer, we'll be putting the steering cover back, or the airbag and all that back on. So there's two sides, and they split off like such. If you're not used to doing a lot of wiring, it'd probably be a good idea to mark which was which, just for your knowledge of when you put it back all back together. Don't forget your little clips, retaining clips. Earlier I had mentioned about these bottom two screws here, about taking these two out, but you don't have to do that unless you're replacing this back cover, which I did at one point when I started modding my stereo for the upgraded steering wheel controls. See, I added the buttons back there. I didn't get finished with that yet though. That'll be probably another video coming up. Anyways, alright, got everything connected except for the airbag. So at this point, we're going to connect the airbag. I don't know how the best way to do this is. Alright, black on black. Tan on tan, and these just snap right in once I figure out which. There we go. Snap right in. Alright, make sure they're in tight. Then you got that last one. Sorry guys, I lost it. That should be good. So that takes care of that. Now we're gonna turn the wheels back a little bit so we can get these covers on. All right, a little bit more. Alright, I like to start with the bottom one. I'll put you guys down here again. How well you can see. Find out when I edit the video. Same way you took it off. It's easiest if you start the bottom with the column adjustment lever side first. And move over to the, oops, gotta take the key out. Move over to the key cylinder side. Screw fiber fell out. You want to adjust this shift column, shifter, lever boot best you can. And this top cover's kind of a pain. I suggest doing the back first. Make sure you got all your little pieces in. Situated on that side. Check the other side. Oh, what a disaster. I'm hung up on the hazard light. There we go. That's better. Everything's just about seated. Here's where the boot comes a little bit of an issue, trying to work with 3 pieces at a time. Here we go. Pull it up in the top one first and then snap it in the bottom. There we go. Realign this side. Oh, I'm back out. Bear with me a second, guys. Some things are just easier when you have 2 hands. Like I was saying. That side's good, that side's pretty close. Once we screw that together, should be set. So let's get to screwing it together. Remember those Torx screws? 3 of them. Should line up pretty well once you have it clicked together pretty well. Those 2 top and bottom pieces, they actually they're supposed to snap together, but I've had my steering column apart probably 4 or 5 times now for odds and end repairs, and it doesn't always snap. There's one silver screw that goes in the middle. The other 2 are the black screws. One's a machine screw, the other 2 are for the plastic studs from the top piece. Alright, now all we got inside is shift lever knob, and that just clicks on. Then we step outside. Gotta get my wrench, hold on.